If this game had been played in the 19th century, they'd have been throwing gold coins at the end, because this is incredibly beautiful. It's wild, it's complicated, but just staggeringly beautiful. I tell you what, the victor here, he can just stop playing chess right now. He can retire and go, well, I'm not going to do better than that. This was played in the Romanian Championship just a few days ago. Stick around, it is incredible. Szabo playing white. Stepanencu playing black. I'm going to play through the whole game without any variations because it is very complicated, and then I'm going to go back at the end and fill in a few of the tasty details. Caro-Kann, advanced variation, bishop f5, very trendy, the advance. h4, looking to play g4, looking to gain space on the king side. h5 solidly blocks, however does give away some control over the g5 square. It's all pretty normal though. Now, there are sharper ways to play this, but bishop d3 is pretty solid, so you can see that basically we've now got a French defense pawn formation on the board, but black has managed to get rid of that light squared bishop. It's a pretty well rehearsed variation. Both sides get something here. You can see that white has some control over the g5 square. Black has reasonable control over certainly f5. Knight f5, and now white plays c4, just gaining space. So it's not exactly like a French at the moment because black hasn't been able to get in c5. So white's gained space. g3 defends the pawn, castles, and now b3. So it looks quite impressive for white. However, black is really solid. This is the thing about the Caro. It is hard to break down. Rook d8 looks at the queen. Looks fair enough. And now c5. Excellent counterattack. Queen takes. Knight f1. Now here is where black gets greedy. There was actually no need to go in for this. You can just go knight c6 here. And I think I would prefer black's position there. I think black's pieces are very good with a nice strong point on d5. But black takes on c4. This is pushing it. White snaps off the rook. So it's a queen sack. And actually, white has pretty decent compensation considering that black is a bit gummed up here. Knight e3, not actually the best move. There are better ways to play, but still, it's still incredibly difficult. Well, for both sides, really. Queen a5 hits the rook. Knight g5. And now knight g2. Oh, this is why he played the knight to e3. This is really scary. So that knight looking to play into f4, and it'll be mate in a couple. Knight f4 check. King to the side, and then rook over checkmate. So that's why black goes crazy here with knight g3, which does allow the king to slip out. Now, who is checkmating who? This is really weird. Knight f4. King f5. Be careful, that king not only might be very safe on g4, it might even contribute to some kind of attack. Who knows? Knight f7 played. So I love it the way, both sides are kind of ignoring each other. Of course, the knight defends the rook, as well as taking away quite an important pawn. Queen c3. Black is not backing down. The queen comes in. Looking at all kinds of interesting things here. Maybe the rook. And now this move is incredibly cool. King g2, allowing the rook to be taking the corner. I'll look at that line later. There are all kinds of interesting things going on here. But knight e4 played. Rook f8. Right. We can see that the king is still in trouble here. King g4, trying to step out. Bishop e3. So that stops a queen check and perhaps enables f3. Knight takes f2. That's why that one was played. And now an incredible move. Okay, I'm going to stop just for a moment. You have a little think. I'll have a little slurp tea. I think I need it. What is White's best move here? I'll tell you what. You ain't seen nothing yet. It's just kicking off. Knight d5. Incredible. I will show you one variation. If that's taken, knight h6 check. If pawn takes, then rook f4 is mate. King takes, rook check, and rook g4 mate. That's pretty incredible. So that's the idea of knight d5. It opens up this square. Queen takes rook instead. Knight h. So this is the game. So if that's taken, then rook f4 mate again. However, king takes pawn. Bishop takes knight check. The king comes back. Bishop e3 check. The king comes back here. It's looking to find some kind of security. But watch what happens. Knight f7 threatening rook h8 mate. I mean, this is absolutely bizarre. This queen is way down the other side of the board. Instantly, if the queen checks on one of these squares, the king just finds safety here. It's actually no problem at all. Doesn't make any difference. How does black defend against rook h8? Knight c6. Knight check. So white repeats the position. Now, it could well be he was in some kind of time pressure. So that maybe gained some time on the clock. This is a classical game. Knight check. The king came back. Of course, white has a draw with knight g5, but, well, that's what happened. He can go back and draw. However, this time he decided to check with the other knight. Still got a draw if he wants it. Repeated the position. So this is move 40. He probably reached the time control and could sit back and calculate. Rook takes rook. Now, checking still doesn't achieve anything on one of these squares. The king is absolutely safe on h3. And the threat is to play rook h8. g6 therefore forced. Okay, time for you to have another little think. White to play and win from this position. Cheers, folks. Time for another drink of tea. White to play and win. How does white do it? The best move is rook g8, threatening rook g6 mate. Black took the pawn on e5. Over to you again. White to play and win. Well, white to play and mate, actually. What a great finish. Rook takes g6 check. Here, black resigned. Sadly, why did he not let it go right to the final position? Knight takes rook. Knight f5 checkmate. And yes, here's where surely the gold coins should be thrown on this chessboard. It is just fantastic. What a position. Right, let me fill in a few details. Was that all forced? Not entirely, but actually, from a certain point, then there was no way back for black. And actually, white calculated extremely well. So here is where it starts to get random. Let's just fill in a few gaps here. Let's fill in the details. Black, well, this was too much. This was really pushing it. I mean, in fact, black was doing quite well a little bit after this, but really it's pushing it. In this position, you could just play knight c6. And I rather like black's position. You can see that bishop isn't a great piece. That pawn is potentially vulnerable. That knight is a rock. That knight's a rock. All black's pieces stand well. You know, something like this. Black can now exchange. And black has a big positional advantage. It's not just the fact that this pawn is terribly weak. Actually, all black's minor pieces are better than white's here. So pawn takes pawn was already pushing it. You know, white already has a rook and a bishop for the queen. Plus, how does black develop here? Now, in fact, white's best is to either just bring this bishop out or to take here. Knight e3 actually wasn't the best, even though it takes a lot to understand why and to refute this. Queen a5 was okay. This looks incredibly scary. Knight takes g3 was a good idea. So let me just go forward again. Oh, this is an important moment. So this incredible move, king g2, I think that is actually, you know, one of my favourite moves in the game. King g2 is excellent. So let's just see. Here, black played knight e4. Let's just see what would happen if queen takes rook. That's obviously the acid test of this move. In fact, this is winning for white. Let's just see how. So that king is getting pushed around. It's almost in a mating net. Rook check. And now an incredibly cool move. King takes g3. And black's king is just kind of stuck here. The point is that if queen takes, then that actually wins the queen, unbelievably. And otherwise, well, you know, you can give that rook in the corner, but this should be winning for white, basically. So that's an important variation. But you can see how moving the king up to g2 covers a really important square and actually helps to confine black's king. Okay, let's continue. Now here black played king g4. Understandable, stepping away from the rook. In fact, my computer tells me that with best play, knight c6 is still a draw. I mean, understanding this, there is no understanding. It's just crazy. So here, for example, rook takes rook is actually a mistake. And this is now better for black, incredibly. And in this case, the king is safe. I mean, there's no kind of rhyme or reason to it, really. But king g4, definitely a mistake. And actually, bishop e3 is a good move. But knight h6 check was even better. And now an incredible move. Knight d3 with the idea rook f4 mate. And after this, takes, that's rook f4 mate, still the threat. And after this, well, black just has to give up material. And rook g8 followed by rook h1 mate. Wow, that's a variation. So that would have been, actually knight h6 would have been a quicker finish than the game, although we got to see something really beautiful in the end. Now knight f2 was played here. If queen takes rook, once again we have an extraordinary checkmate here. f3 and knight g6 mate. Wow. See, it's these little hidden variations that really, you know, make this game very special. So that was queen takes rook. Now in the game, knight f2. And then this fantastic move, knight d4, no, knight d5, beg your pardon, which basically clears the f4 square. And actually after that, white plays really perfectly. You know, this was calculated extremely well. Yes, there were repetitions. That's just good practical chess. You know, you give yourself time to make the time control and then finish things off cleanly. And yeah, let's just go to the finish again. Let's have an action replay. Here. So lots of checks with these knights. It was actually very important to clear away that pawn on e6 because that freed the f5 square. Now we get there in the end. Little by little. Threatening rook h8, g6, rook g8, and rook takes, knight f5 mate. Puts me in mind of some other checkmating finishes with knights actually. Just bear with me. So for example, this one, I mean this is an old one. Queen f7 here, knight e6 mate, it's quite sweet. There's this one. This is quite sweet. Queen f2. If that's taken, then it's knight on it, knight f2. And there's a nice finish here, queen g3. That's pretty sweet. I mean, none of them compare to the game we've just seen. Finally, I'm going to leave you with this one. This was composed, published in 1849 by a certain Monsieur de Musset. It is white to play and mate in 3. White to play and mate in 3. This is very sweet. If you want to write the solution in the comments, then please do, down there somewhere. If you want to support the channel, then do check out our Patreon page. You can subscribe for whatever amount you like per month, but there are rewards according to how much you contribute. Do check out Patreon. Newsletter, extra videos, all that kind of stuff. And if you're not a subscriber, then please do click the subscribe button and the bell. Let's try and make it to 100,000 finally. Thanks for watching.